Welcome to The Explainer. You know, if you look at the front lines in Ukraine right now, things seem weirdly quiet, almost stalled. But what if that's all just a bit of an illusion? Today we're going to dig into an analysis that says this isn't a stalemate at all. It's the quiet before a massive, massive storm.
All right, so let's get right into it. The big question we're all asking is, has the Russian army just stopped? Or is there something else at play here? Because if you read the headlines, you hear a lot about minimal progress, a few meters here and there. But that might be a really dangerous, incomplete way to look at it.
And this is where things get really interesting. Just look at the data, or, well, the confusion in the data. What we're seeing here are the reported territorial gains from March 2026, based on the analysis we're looking at. You've got pro-Ukrainian sources like the ISW saying, hey, Russia only took about 5 square kilometers, tiny. Then you have the Blackbird group, they say 25. But then, look at this. Other mapping projects are claiming as high as 235. That huge difference, that's our first big clue that what we're being told might not be the full picture.
So here's the absolute heart of the argument. The analysis we're digging into today claims this slowdown, it's not a failure, not at all. It's what they call a deliberate operational pause. Think of it like taking a deep breath before the plunge. It's a calculated moment to regroup, to rearm, and to get everything perfectly set up for a much, much bigger attack.
But before we can even get into what Russia's strategy is, we have to talk about why they need this new strategy in the first place. And it all comes down to one thing that is completely dominating the battlefield: drones. I mean, they have fundamentally rewritten the rules of modern warfare.
Yeah, and this quote from military correspondent Alexander Krenchenko just says it all, doesn't it? Our offensive is being stopped not by infantry, but by a line of drones. It's not about trenches or tank battles anymore. The thing stopping huge assaults is this relentless, non-stop wall of eyes in the sky.
And this really shows you what that actually feels like for the soldiers on the ground. Drones mean there's almost total control of the air. You want to move? You literally have to wait for a storm or heavy fog. You try to send in a big armored column like in the old days, it just gets swarmed and completely obliterated. So the only way forward is with these small, sneaky infantry groups. That is the deadlock. That's the puzzle Russia is trying to solve.
Okay, so we get the problem, right? This wall of drones. So now, let's get to the juicy part, the grand strategy. How in the world does the Russian command plan to break through this thing and actually make some progress?
Well, first off, it's super important to realize this isn't some brand new tactic they just invented. We've actually seen this exact pattern play out before. Remember back in 2024? There was a really quiet, muddy march, and then boom, the Akratine breakthrough. Same thing in 2025, a lull in March, then big gains in the summer. So the argument here is that March 2026, it's just history repeating itself. It's another one of those pauses to get ready.
And what's the end goal of all this preparation? Where is this massive offensive headed? Well, according to this analysis, it's all pointing to one place: a big, coordinated, three-pronged attack on the city of Slovyansk, really the crown jewel of Ukraine's defenses in the Donbass.
So the plan is actually pretty classic. It's a pincer movement, but just on a gigantic scale. You've got 3 separate attacks all happening at once. A northern arm coming through Lyman, a straight-up central push from Siversk, and a southern arm targeting Kostiantynivka. And the idea is for all 3 to close in on Slovyansk like a vice.
All right, let's break this down piece by piece. First up, that northern pincer. This whole part of the front is basically one brutal, grinding city fight for Lyman.
And here you can see what both sides are trying to do. Russia, well, they really don't want to just charge head-on into the city. Instead, they're trying to go around it to outflank and encircle Lyman by capturing these little villages all around it. And for Ukraine, holding on to these tiny dots on the map is absolutely everything. If they lose them, the supply lines into Lyman get severed, and the city is toast.
And this number right here, 6, really shows you just how incredibly hard that is. In just one recent attempt to take one of those key villages, the Russians tried using a big mechanized column. The result? Ukrainian drones took out at least 6 of their armored vehicles. It's just a bloody, perfect example of why those old-school tactics just get shredded by the wall of drones.
Okay, now let's shift gears and look at the central part of this attack, the push from Siversk. Because here the story is completely different. We're not talking about a stalemate anymore. We are talking about a major breakthrough.
So first, take a look at this map. This is the front line on February 1st. For, years, this whole area was basically frozen. Russian forces were just stuck. bogged down trying to take the Ukrainian stronghold of Seversk.
Okay, now, fast forward just a little over 6 weeks. Look at the map now. After they finally took Seversk, Russian forces just shattered the deadlock and punched forward almost 10 kilometers. It just goes to show you, when a breakthrough finally happens, it can be incredibly fast and game-changing.
And the strategic impact of this? It's huge. The lead Russian units are now only 15 kilometers away from the edge of Slovyansk itself, the grand prize. I mean, that puts an insane amount of pressure on the entire Ukrainian defensive line in this whole area.
All right, last but not least, let's look at that third prong, the southern pincer. And down here, the fight for Kostiantynivka is being defined by Russia's just overwhelming tech advantage, specifically with drones.
The source we're looking at includes this really devastating quote, "Our men flee the battlefield." It's about Ukrainian morale. Because that constant 24/7 pressure from Russian drones, it's not just blowing things up. It's psychologically shattering. It's breaking the will of the defenders.
And this map, wow, this paints a really dystopian picture of what it's like. It shows the path of a single Russian drone, but look at where it starts. It's hiding in the grass 7 kilometers behind the front line, just chilling next to a main road. It just waits and then launches, flying deep into the city to hit a target. Now just try to imagine hundreds, maybe thousands of these things lurking absolutely everywhere.
So, let's recap. We've got the slow, brutal grind in the north.
We've got the massive breakthrough in the center, and we've got this drone-led siege in the south. So let's zoom out now and put all these pieces together. What does it all mean? What happens next?
Okay, so here is the big takeaway. That slow progress we see on the maps, it's deceptive. The argument from this source is that Russia is deliberately fighting these 3 incredibly costly city battles all at the same time. Lyman, Seversk, Kostiantynivka. They aren't actually the main prize. They're what military folks call shaping operations. They're meant to pin down Ukrainian forces, to grind them down, and to basically set the stage for the real main event, the final massive assault on Slovyansk.
Which, of course, leaves us with the million-dollar question. Is this some kind of brilliant 4D chess-style strategy, using a deceptive pause and these bloody shaping operations to set up a huge, decisive victory? Or is it just a massively overambitious plan that's going to smash itself to pieces against the new reality of this war, that unbreakable Ukrainian wall of drones? I guess only the next few months are going to give us the answer.